the work I've been doing to try to get some more herbicide options available for us. So this is the herbicide screening was conducted in 2020, and we've been able to move forward with some of this data, and I'll talk about that in a little bit here. So as I mentioned before, there's really only one registered herbicide for use in season, so post-emergent in wild rice in California, and that's Shark H2O, as I mentioned before, carfentrazone. And so the background on this is that I decided that it would be really easy to just take all the rice herbicides that are currently registered or in the registration pipeline in California and do a screening and see how wild rice tolerated it. So don't know how it's going to work yet on the weeds in the field, but basically just wanted to see if it was going to kill, if the herbicides would kill the wild rice. So we did this preliminary screening in the greenhouse, and then we're going to be moving forward with field testing hopefully this year. So quick background on the methods. The seed was donated by Lundberg Family Farms, and we did all this at the Rice Experiment Station in Big, so thank you to them. The seeds were pre-germinated, and that was because I was having a lot of trouble before getting the wild rice to germinate. So we pre-germinated in the incubator and then planted in 4-inch square pots. So this is basically how I do most of my screenings. I had 4 seeds per pot, and then we made the applications quite early actually. So this is probably earlier than it would be in the field, but at the 1 to 2 leaf stage of wild rice. We had a separate granular formulation experiment and a foliar or liquid formulation experiment. The granular formulations we made into the water, so just how we would in the field. So the pots were placed in bins, and then they were flooded up to about the top of the bin. This is a little bit lower water than would be in the field. And then the granular formulations were applied into the bins. For the foliar or liquid formulations, we had a cabinet track sprayer, and that was applied with 20 gallons of water per acre. Had 4 replications per treatment, and then we did phytotoxicity rating. So roughly 7 days after application, we just looked at how the plants appeared, and then we did a fresh weight, harvest, and final plant count at 21 days after application. So like I mentioned before, I thought this was an easy thing to start with, was just to see, based on the weed spectrum being very similar, just to see, again, if any of the rice herbicides would be a good candidate to carry forward here. So you can see we did all the currently registered rice herbicides, propanil, we've got bensulfuron methyl or Londax, clincher. So these at the top, let's see, Super WIM stam is a pretty broad spectrum herbicide, would kill grass, sedge, and some of our broadleaves. Londax is primarily a sedge material. Oops, sorry. Clincher is a grass material. Sandia, sedge. I won't go through all of these, but trying to get pretty broad spectrum coverage to control our weeds. Like I mentioned before, Shark H2O really only controls our sedges and a couple broadleaves. I also had some candidates that are currently in the pipeline. Loyant is hopefully going to be registered in California rice next year. And then pyroclonil, which is the active ingredient is pyroclonil, and we don't know the trade name yet. It's not currently registered. I'm not sure exactly how long it will be before that's registered in California. I used pretty typical field rates. If we go forward with these in the future, we'll need to probably look at adjusting these rates to make sure we don't damage the wild rice and get good weed control. But I just, for the time being, went with the standard rice field rates. Okay, looking at the percent injury. So these ratings were done a week after we applied the herbicides. I've got over here on the left our granular applications. So Bolero, Butte, Serrano, pyroclonil again, Granite GR. And you can see that the injury ratings were pretty significant on most of them. So the only one that looked somewhat okay is Granite GR, and we had about a roughly 30% injury on that one. Super Wham, Stam, again, pretty low injury. Clincher, we had no injury, noticeable. Londox, Sandia, pretty high injury. Loyant and Grandstand, again, very low injury. Regiment, pretty high injury. So really the good candidates at 7 days after treatment were Granite, Super Wham, Clincher, Loyant, and Grandstand. 21 days after application, we went ahead and did a fresh weight measurement as well as a plant count. Okay, so this is for the granular formulations. So average reduction in fresh weight, this is by percent compared to the untreated control. So you can see that, again, most of the granulars showed injury after 7 days, still didn't look great, didn't get any better by 21 days. Again, the only okay looking one perhaps is Granite, still not great, but maybe we can adjust the rate on this, who knows. But it didn't look too bad at the standard field rate for rice. For the average reduction in plant number, again, pretty significant number or reduction in plant number. And again, in the field, we would see if any of these survived, but I decided not to take any of these forward except for Granite GR. But if we were doing a larger scale field trial, we could see if some of these survived past the 21 days. But again, pretty doubtful. So like I said, Granite GR is the only one that I thought was a good candidate for taking forward. Visual here, the photos. So you can see Granite GR looks okay. This is at 21 days after application. Butte, Bolero, Serrano, Pyroclonil, all really looked quite awful. So, and chances are in the field with a deep flood applied to the top of these that they would not survive. Our foliar or liquid applications, 21 days after application. Here's our average reduction in fresh weight. So again, lower numbers are better. So Super Wham Stam, very low reduction. Clincher, again, we saw pretty much 100% survival with Clincher. Londox and Dia, not good candidates. Loyant and Grandstand, looking pretty good. Regiment, not looking so great. And for the foliar applications, we didn't have any plants that completely died. So the 4 out of 4 plants survived, but you can see we definitely had a reduction in fresh weight for some of the herbicides. So these are the candidate herbicides that I decided to take forward. So Super Wham Stam, Clincher, Loyant, and Grandstand. And these are actually providing, like, between these 4 and Granite GR, pretty broad spectrum control. So Grandstand typically controls our sedges and some of our broadleaves. Loyant is a grass, but not a good grass herbicide actually, but it has pretty good control of our sedges. Clincher would provide some grass control, and Super Wham Stam has fairly broad spectrum control, including grass control. So again, trying to broaden our spectrum of weed control and provide some different modes of action other than just shark. Looking at the photo here, you can see, so Propanil, Clincher both look pretty good. There's our untreated over there on the right. Grandstand and Loyant also looking very good. So the plants look nice and healthy at 21 days after treatment. So here's our summary, our candidate herbicides. So Clincher, like I said, Loyant, and Loyant again is not currently registered in California. Super Wham Stam, Granite GR, and Grandstand. So again, pretty good broad spectrum, different modes of action. Sahalafop is one mode of action, Loyant is another. So the only 2 that are, actually all these are different modes of action. So again, pretty broad spectrum set of herbicides that we've got. So the next steps are that we would be pursuing some field testing. And we're going to look to see if one or more of these are feasible candidates. And we would be looking at both weed control as well as yields. So this year, we have some folks from IR4 here on the call today. The project was submitted to IR4 and it was approved. So we will be going forward with some field testing. And just a quick background here, the IR4 project is through the USDA, and it's really for helping specialty crops through the product registration pipeline and allowing funds for testing of products that might not be so feasible to test for chemical companies. So basically providing an alternative route for helping with product registration. I have 2 cooperators currently identified, one in the Lassen area and one in the Yolo Sacramento area. I'm still looking for a 3rd field site, but if all else fails, we'll go for a field site at UC Davis. So I was looking for one in the Butte area. If anybody knows of anybody, that would be a good cooperator. Okay, and like I said before, these are the products we're going to be testing, and we're also going to be comparing it to the standard, and then we'll do field testing this year and see how it turns out and where we need to go next year. So pretty exciting. I'm excited about this project, and hopefully we get some good candidates out of this year's testing. Okay.